All right, so hi there. Welcome back to this lesson on sleep, and in this module on sleep and stress affecting your recovery and how it impacts your fat loss results. We're going to be talking about sleep today, and this is very, very important because sleep is a really non-negotiable part of the fat loss process. The lack of sleep can potentially disrupt your hunger hormones and just mess with the fullness and the hunger hormones. The lack of sleep also affects your insulin sensitivity, which basically increases the risk of fat storage. It means that whatever you eat, you put into your body's not able to shuttle the nutrients where it needs to go appropriately, and it tends to almost immediately, I would say, kind of push things to be stored around the visceral fat area, which is the belly fat area that is correlated with very, very high levels of lifestyle related diseases. The other part to it, so sleep is critical for muscle recovery because if you don't get enough muscle and if you're not recovering well, your body's not going to adapt, it's not going to build more muscle, and that is going to impact your metabolism in the long run. So here's kind of a diagram on how sleep can actually sabotage your goal. Okay, if you lack sleep, there are generally two drivers that would drive you to eat. Now, you notice that one is called the non-homeostatic drive to eat, and the other one is called the homeostatic drive to eat. The non-homeostatic drive to eat basically just refers to things that are external to your body itself, okay? The things that are not related to the hormonal balance or just the internal workings of your body. And it's more related to environmental aspects that come about as a result of your lack of sleep. And so under that range there, you can see that not only the most obvious one is when you are not sleeping enough, you essentially have more time to eat and more opportunities to eat. So you end up eating more. Just it honestly sounds really simple, but that's one big factor as well. Think about all the times where you finish dinner, you're trying to work, very late, then you get hungry and you say, yeah, maybe I'll go grab a snack. Maybe I'll go eat something extra. Or maybe your buddies are saying, hey, are you still awake? Yeah, want to go grab a supper? Things like this. Yeah, that's usually what happens. You just end up eating more because you're not sleeping enough. The other one is that when we are not sleeping enough, it actually increases our sensitivity to food as a reward mechanism in the brain. And that just means that now when we eat something potentially that triggers that, enjoyment, that dopamine high that we get from eating the food, we actually crave it more and more. So that leads to overeating quite easily. And with all the types of foods that are available nowadays, they're all engineered to be as palatable as possible. Think about all the stuff that you can find on the shelves, all the little snacks. They're made to be eaten in great quantities. Yeah. So that's one of the things, or two of the things that can really impact your goals when you are not getting enough sleep. The other side of the equation there is the homeostatic drive to eat. And basically, this just refers to how, as I mentioned earlier, sleep can impact your hunger hormones and your fullness hormones and your stress hormones as well. So you can see down there, there's a little diagram that or indicator that says, your ghrelin goes up, your leptin goes down, your cortisol goes up. Basically, ghrelin is the hormone that triggers the hunger feeling the hunger signal to your brain. Leptin is the hormone that triggers the fullness feeling to your brain. And when those two go in that direction, where your ghrelin goes up, your leptin goes down, it tends to result in you just feeling really hungry no matter how much you're eating. Now, you will also notice that I put in there uh, the little asterisk that says well supported by recent studies, and the other one says not well supported by recent studies. It doesn't mean that this is not happening, but what this indicates is that it's probably not as strong of a relationship as we initially thought. But there is still some of these mechanisms happening, and when they are all combined together, I think the end result is still the fact that when we lack sleep, we end up increasing our food intake. Okay, which is the biggest thing that sabotages your goals. So, as we were talking about, lack of sleep increases your food cravings. Okay, you tend to want to eat more of the high calorie processed foods just because they are more palatable. They trigger the reward mechanism in the brain, and you want to eat more. They tend to lead to lower energy levels, which then, probably results in people saying, hey, I don't feel like working out today. I'm probably going to skip my workout. Maybe I can push it to tomorrow. It also leads to higher cortisol levels because you are not getting enough sleep, not enough recovery, which is basically the stress hormone, right? So aside from actual lifestyle stress affecting you and increasing your body's perception of stress, the lack of sleep amplifies up this level of stress even further. And as I mentioned, high chronic levels of stress in the body tends to encourage fat storage around the midsection. Again, this is the unhealthy fat that really pushes up your risk of any health issues. The last one here, as I also talked about, was the reduced muscle recovery, which then makes your progress slower. So now, not only are you skipping workouts, but you're also likely to be going back to the workouts and not being able to perform at the level that you would like. And no, then that can be super demotivating, which just is a vicious cycle on its own. So, with all that being said, what are some of the key ways to improve sleep? A lot of these things I'm going to mention are probably things that you've heard before, but I'm just going to give you a very quick spin on the very practical way to implement them. Okay. The first one here is sticking to a sleep schedule. Now, in an ideal world, everybody would go to bed at the same time and everybody would wake up at the same time, in an ideal world. But the reality is, most of us right now mentally are feeling so overwhelmed with all the things that are available to us and that we're bombarded with in a day-to-day setting, that there's this thing now, it's a new phenomenon called revenge bedtime procrastination. So a lot of times people end up pushing their bedtime back, even though they know that it's not good for them. So how do we kind of fight against this? I would say we still want to adopt a sleep schedule, but set a bedtime schedule where you allow yourself a little bit of this procrastination. 30 minutes, 15 minutes, just put a timer on it. And then tell yourself, okay, I'm going to set myself a bedtime range of when we are going to go to sleep. So instead of saying, I'm going to sleep at 10:30, right? That's too absolute. You're going to say, all right, I'm going to get into bed and put my phone down, by between 10 to 10:30. So you're just giving yourself a range to work with, or even 10:30 to 11, whatever it is. Just pick a range, pick a timing, and then commit to that. So as long as you're within that range, it makes it a bit easier for you to stick to this schedule. Now, the next one to this would be to reduce your usage of screens before bed. Okay, some people can do it. Great, that's perfect. But I think some other people, might find it a bit more of a struggle, especially if you are in the group that I mentioned where you might end up, participating in this revenge bedtime procrastination aspect. So one thing you can do is you can implement a blue filter in your screens. I believe nowadays a lot of the phones actually have this function where you can input a blue filter setting or a nighttime setting. In fact, I think a lot of phones nowadays have a sleep mode, where they actually encourage you to log off the phone, or you can set certain settings to like shut down your phone to some degree and make it less usable. It can be applied to certain apps, things like that. Okay, so all these are little tips that can really help you reduce the usage of screens before bed. The biggest tip I can give you, honestly, is to set your charger either in like right at the other corner of the room, so that you charge your phone, you put it down, and then you get into bed, and it's not by your bedside. Okay, that's one way. Or even better, you can charge it in a completely separate room. Yeah. So I think that's an easy way to kind of reduce the usage of your screens before bed. Because a lot of people are lying in bed right now looking at their phones for the most part. So that's a big issue for many people. Now, the other two here are pretty easy to implement, I would say. The first one is optimizing your sleep environment. Hey, a cool, dark, quiet room promotes deep sleep. I think the temperature that's recommended is something like 24 to 25 degrees. Sorry, no, that's for aircon efficiency. That's a totally different metric. Anyway, I think it's actually closer to 18 to 20 degrees if I'm not wrong. But I do believe the studies were conducted on majority male participants. I would have to check that. So it could be anywhere, maybe slightly higher for if you're female, it might be somewhere closer to 21 or 22 degrees. But whatever it is, basically needs to be cool. It needs to be dark. Now, making the entire room dark might not be realistic. So for most people, we would recommend like some sort of a sleep mask. You can just put that on. And yeah, and obviously having a quiet. You can also play some ambient music or ambient noise as well. That would be very helpful. And the last one, obviously, is avoiding caffeine late in the day. Now, some of you might say, hey, caffeine doesn't affect me. I can drink a cup of coffee and I can still go to sleep. Well, that my friend, is a problem in and of itself. That has an issue. That means there's an issue there with your adenosine receptors, and that would actually indicate you probably should cycle off caffeine for a period of time to resensitize your body to it. Okay, so those are the very practical ways to improve on your sleep. And in the next lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about stress and how you can deal with that as well. So I'll see you in the next lesson.